So recently in the Ultimate series, Doom has expressed his plans after finding out that the Maker is another Reed Richards from an alternate universe. And if you look at Doom's plans at face value, you might think one thing, but when you compare what we're told now to what Star-Lord of the Guardians of the Galaxy told Doom about him or Tony killing trillions across time, with Star-Lord being a survivor from the far future, who also said that present-day Doom looks familiar but more dangerous. Well, at this point, I think this is where we begin to see why. So let's get into it. But first, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so going into this, we do quite a bit of jumping around from different moments in time, and for a couple different reasons, with time being a huge factor in this new Ultimates universe, but also in Doom's case, he's kind of all over the place at the moment, with him often looking back at the past and planning for the future. Similar to what we've seen with Tony Stark, though in Tony's case it's more literal, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But the first thing we see here is the past kind of merge with the present, with Doom looking at some old footage of his professor asking what is the fourth dimension, just before calling on him as the young Reed. But before we hear the younger version of him answer the question, we jump closer to present day with Doom answering saying a prison, because now the student has become the teacher. So he goes on to tell his students, who we'll see more of in a moment, he tells them time closes in on us like the walls of a cell. If you are to make it past those walls and escape this prison you were born into, you will have to think in 4 dimensions. I am Doom. I will be your teacher. And now with Doom saying this, I believe the whole idea of thinking in 4 dimensions, it's going to play a huge part down the line. Because when we get into what Doom's plans specifically are, I believe it's going to take both Doom and Tony to make it work. Because if either one of them try it without the other, it's going to be a very dangerous scenario. And you'll see what I mean in a minute. But in the 4th moment here, we see Doom approaching Tony to have a conversation with him about Doom's recent discovery of the Maker's identity. And even now Tony's like sure, but he's split up in a number of different places. Because much like how Kang would time slide to create duplicates of himself, Tony's basically doing the same here to be in more places at once, which is how he's been able to be at both the Triskelion as well as out in the field handling multiple missions like he is now. And keep in mind, Tony's just getting started with these new abilities, and they're quickly evolving, because at first he started out with like 5 additional copies, so 6 Tonys total, and after that he's like next time I'll do 9 or 10. And now at this point in issue 17, he's over 21, so you could say he's in the process of evolving, so to speak. Because like we saw before, when Doom saved Scum, then brought Tony back by way of using the Immortus engine, Tony's physical recovery has given him an insane connection to time that we've really just scratched the surface of. Because even now, Tony can look through time and see variances. He can see the future up until the Maker's return, but he's still in a place where he's trying to harness this power. But with where things are heading, he's going to need to get really good really quick. But at this time, with us focusing on Doom, we head back into the set of 4 instances where we look into these 4 moments in time, starting with Doom's past, where as a young Reed Richards, he thought he could handle a drink at 14, only to find out that wasn't the case. But even at that time, Ben Grimm was there for him, all the while cracking a joke like, here you go, Dr. Richards. You'll be alright. I got you, Dr. Richards. And in the second slot, we see Doom observing this moment as well. Then following this, in the third, we get a better look at Project 4, with one of Doom's students asking a question saying, Dr. Doom, how is this different from the Avengers program we were already selected for? And right away Doom corrects them saying it's just Doom. Then he tells him here this project predates the Avengers program. Development was slow to start. It's the result of years of research into cosmic energy and a new theory of superhuman organization, as he welcomes all of them to Project 4. And in the 4th slide, we go back to Doom's conversation with Tony, just after Doom told Tony that he wanted to talk. So at first, Tony's like, is this about Project 4? And that's where Doom basically tells him no, Project 4 is on track. But instead, this is about some vital information that he just discovered that he feels like Tony needs to know. And Tony tells him here, forgive me if I seem distracted. Currently fighting a team of Teenage Mutant Assassins in South America. And about 21 other things. 21. But I'm listening. And now just after this introduction, it's here where the 4-moment format starts to open up a bit, because next we go back to a moment where Reed is telling Sue how the cosmic rays are the leftover energies of the Big Bang, the universal creative impulse made manifest. And he tells her here, if we could harness this power, we could do anything. It's not a stretch to say we could put an end to disease, scarcity, even death, Sue, just before it jumps forward to the moment where she's dying on the hospital bed after being exposed to the cosmic rays that were just not the right amount. And just after this, we jump forward to Project 4 with Doom telling the students, thanks to Miss Chavez, each of you will be bombarded with cosmic rays in a short controlled burst. The levels must be exactly right. Too much or too little destroys human cells. Death is creative and painful. My analysis says you are all likely to survive exposure, but not certainly. I am not the Maker. do you understand? You have a choice. Each of you has a choice. Because if Doom literally was the maker, he would just make them do it. And after this, going back to Doom's conversation with Tony, where Doom says, I am Doom. That is all I will ever be. But before I was Doom, my name was Reed Richards. And Tony's like, yeah, one of the teens just spit acid on my face. So it's not looking good for one of the Tonys out there. But a thing to keep in mind, when it comes to Doom mentioning that he was Reed Richards, he knows what him, Sue, Ben, and Johnny could have been. Because the Maker's files also had footage of the Fantastic Four from Earth 616. So Doom was able to see what him and the others had almost become. And that's one of the things that really makes Project 4 very interesting, because now Doom is using that research to give these students unique powers, which is very similar to a team like the UFOs, who we last talked about during Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk. I think that's the last time we talked about them, but their origin was based on them trying to replicate the incident that created the Fantastic Four, though in their case, the outcome was very different. But in this case, with what Doom's doing with Project 4, a lot of these outcomes look very similar to the UFOs, and I'm pretty sure that was intentional. But going forward, Doom tells them, you'll be formed into surgical teams, small, scientifically balanced units of 4. Thanks to the Immortus engine, we'll have relative years to train. And when one of them asks Doom, why 4? We get the answer in a really interesting way. And I mean, part of that he already answered by telling them the teams are scientifically balanced, but the more thorough answer goes back to the Maker's notes. Because next, when we head back to the conversation between Tony and Doom, Doom goes on to give Tony his confession, if that's what you want to call it. Because he says here, in another universe, Reed Richards is Mr. Fantastic, leader of the Fantastic Four, a great hero. And that's where Tony's like, you have to stop dwelling on the past, Doom. We're looking to the future now, and Mr. Fantastic kind of sounds like a piece of work, which then takes Doom back to a moment before the launch when Ben told him he was a piece of work. And at the time when Doom was Reed, he told Ben that's the reason why it has to be them going with them, because they're the only people in the world who can deal with them. But as far as getting to the significance of the number 4 for Doom, when we see him looking at the Maker's notes and the footage of the 616 Fantastic Four, he says here, I've always felt incomplete, that something was missing. When I read the Maker's files, I at last saw the shape of this absence. Because for Doom, after he saw the Fantastic Four of Earth 616, he saw what they are all going to be, what they should have been. And from there, it wasn't just like, oh, something feels like it's missing. He knew exactly what it was. And going forward, we'll also see the shape of this absence by way of it being just a blank silhouette of the other members of the Fantastic Four. And they've been with him like ghosts ever since, to the point where this is what inspired Doom to build the Cosmic Chamber and kick up Project 4, which is basically him replicating or bringing to fruition what him, Sue, and the others could have been. But going back to the conversation between Doom and Tony, Doom says here, listen to me, Reed Richards, in our universe, that man became Doom. In another, Mr. Fantastic. But in the third reality, he became the Maker. It was me. It was me all along. And within this conversation for Doom, this is the part where he feels like he's dropping the bomb on Tony, like, look, I got news for you. Because to Doom, there's so many layers to this. But first, we jump to a brief moment where the students of Project 4 find themselves being overwhelmed, since they're not quite ready. So they're told to abort and retreat. Because again, Doom gave these guys a choice, and to him, they're not expendable. So going back to the conversation between Doom and Tony, Doom says here, for an eternity, I wondered, why? Why the torture, the cruelty, the glee? Why me? And with Doom saying for an eternity, for him, it might as well have been. Because back in issue 4, when we saw the Maker torturing Reed and turning him into Doom, we knew that the city allowed the Maker to take as much time as he needed. But there's more to it that we'll see in a little bit. But going forward, as we jump back and forth between these moments, I want you to keep in mind what Doom said to the students of Project 4 when he told them, I am not the Maker. Because as we go back and forth between these different moments, there's this undertone of comparison here. Because with the Maker having nearly an infinite amount of time to torture him, the next thing we see is the moment where Doom had to save the Ultimates by way of using the Immortus engine, and back when he did, it was clutch because he only had seconds to make it work. And within that window, Doom had to guess at some of the numbers, which was super painful for him. Because there was a time when he believed that Ben, Sue, and Johnny died because of his inaccurate calculations. But he was able to make it work and bring the Ultimates back with the Immortus engine even though they actually died. So it would be nice if he could do that for Sue and the others, but that would likely undo both him and Tony, as well as everything they've built thus far, from Project 4 all the way back to the origin boxes that Tony sent out. But going forward, we see Doom working with more of the students from Project 4. And what's interesting here is that while he's coaching them on this mission, Doom mentions how AIM's chief engineer is close to cracking the code on the ULTnet, and he tells them to compensate for gravity too, you know. But as far as someone cracking the ULTnet, We knew that AIM had been trying to figure that out since the Roxxon meeting where the White Queen stepped in, but as of issue 16, when we saw how easily those hand agents were finding people, it almost makes it seem as if someone has figured it out, which I imagine would point back to Emma Frost, since she scanned the minds of everyone at that AIM meeting. And not to say that's the case from what we saw, but after seeing this, it crossed my mind, because as far as we know, the altnet may already be compromised. But going back to the conversation between Doom and Tony, Doom goes on to say, "I have seen the enemy, and it is me. Under the circumstances, I am stepping back." So right there, Tony's like, stepping back? What are you talking about? And it's almost like those very words trigger another memory, back when Doom was still Reed Richards and being tortured by the Maker. Because the Maker tells him, "Here, we took a step back in time." And back then, Reed was like, "I died, it was over." And the Maker told him, "It's never over, Doom. Not for you. You'll die a million times. If it amuses me, you'll die until it doesn't. But don't worry, I'm working on something much worse than death." Which is crazy to see, and it just goes to show how much the Maker hates himself. But once again, with that undertone of comparison that I was talking about, with Doom saying, "I am not the Maker," and us going on to see how the two are different, we see him looking at the restoration chamber with the round window on the side instead of a square, which is what Doom used to bring back Tony. And for this really brief moment, there's no words. It's just Doom here along with the ghosts of Sue and the others, and who knows what's going through his mind at this moment. Perhaps while working on Project 4, he thought about pulling another save scum. Who knows? And after this, we watch Project 4 succeed at taking out that AIM hacker, just before we go back to Doom and Tony's conversation with Doom saying, "Don't you understand? Every plan, every insight, every breakthrough, he had them first. Any hope we had just went up in flames. All our preparation, all we've sacrificed, all compromised. I am compromised." And right there, Tony's just like, "Man, tell me something I don't know." And again, we go back to a bit of the comparison, though this time there's a similarity between them. Because when the Maker was performing an extraction procedure, back when Doom was still Reed, at the time the Maker was like, "My God, the filth in here, Doom. How can you stand the inside of your own head? I can hardly see. Aha, there it is. I recognize it anywhere, though it is quite a bit smaller than mine." And the whole time he's begging the Maker to stop. And of course, the Maker didn't. And on the flip side with Doom, he's not stopping either. But in his case, it's different, because when it comes to Sue and the others, he's determined for them to be together again. But when it comes to the students who were selected for Project 4, not only has he made the choice up to them to even do this procedure, but as he tells one of them just a moment longer, because again, too much or too little will kill this guy. But as Doom tells them just a moment longer, he's saying this as someone who has known long suffering, perhaps even more pain than all of their procedures put together. So his approach with Project 4, it's very different than what the Maker would have done. But when Tony tells Doom that he already knew about Doom and the Maker both being Reed Richards, Doom is just like, "You knew? How?" And Tony tells him from this conversation, "I saw it months ago, though I forget how it ends." And Doom's just like, "And you said nothing?" And Tony's just like, "Didn't I? I guess it didn't seem relevant. I mean, what does it change?" And when Tony says that, it's like it triggers yet another memory from back when the Maker said, "Now there's a change for the better. The extraction was a complete success. This little bit of gray matter was the troublemaker." And back then when Doom was still Reed and he asked the Maker what he took, the Maker told him, "You know that feeling you get when you unlock some secret of the universe, formulate a fundamental law, or discover a new dimension? That profound euphoric moment when everything suddenly clicks into place. It's the best feeling in the world, isn't it? You can be honest with me, Doom. I already know how you feel. Not even love comes close. Not for you. That's what I cut out. That feeling. Or your capacity to feel it anyway. Be happy I left your genius. I wasn't so generous with others. I find myself in need of an assistant, Doom. You're going to help me make a better world." And at the time he told the Maker, "My name is Reed Richards, and I will never assist you." But as we know, that's exactly what he would do later, after becoming this world's version of the Man in the Iron Mask. And the Maker put him to work, doing everything from cleaning the whole lab, which is almost infinite, to trying to get Doom to build the time machine, which was built by Howard Stark, though there are some conflicting memories here on the Maker's part, as far as the first Immortus engine that was made, and the second one that Howard made with Doom's help, back when Doom and Howard Stark first met. But we'll learn what's really going on with that soon enough. And now aside from this, we also see that Doom has been going on missions with the students from Project 4 to retrieve catalysts. And currently, the hero catalysts are nearly a done deal, with Henry Dugry using a lot of them off, and Miles Morales taking the others to Earth 616. But at the time during the mission, Doom told Gravity Girl, "Your progress these past months has been remarkable." And one of the other students is like, "Is that emotion I hear in your voice, Doom?" And he says, "No, hope." And it's a stark contrast to what he tells Tony here, no pun intended, because after Tony tells Doom that it doesn't matter that both him and the Maker are Reed Richards, Doom says it changes everything. He knows me better than I know myself. It's hopeless, Tony. It always was. I was a fool to think otherwise, even for a moment. One cannot escape one's maker, any more than one can escape oneself. So Tony just tells Doom, I have to go. No matter how many of myselves I create, it never seems to be enough. Those teenagers killed me. Which right there just sounds like another night on Fortnite. But Tony goes on saying, I can't force you to stay, Doom. The Ultimates is, by design, a choice. I'll just say, this thing might not work with you, but it definitely doesn't work without you. And now just speaking of the idea of the Ultimates doing this without Doom, on one hand, you still have what we learned from the Guardians when we were told that either Doom or Tony was going to end everything. And then you have things like that moment where Doom told the Ultimates that he brought them back from the dead when he said at that time, I will make a better world in this one's place, even if there's no place for me in it. Which again is very much like what the Maker said, though Doom's goals and his methods, they're very much the inverse of it. And this is why, to me, Ultimate Doom is like the Unmaker, because the Maker modified this world for himself, and Doom's willing to do whatever it takes to save it, even if there's no place for him in it. But after this, when we see Doom looking at the blank silhouettes of Sue, Ben, and Johnny, with us going back to a memory of him working on the Cosmic Chamber, there's another moment here where he speaks to them, saying, I know what you think. I know. You think I'm giving up on you. On us. Which is why I believe we got that silent moment with no words, because I imagine he's gone through a number of options at this point. And just by looking at Project 4 for what it is, at face value, with Doom building this cosmic chamber and giving these students their powers, he's got them looking like Fantastic Four replacements. And it seems like aside from that, he's just focused on the mission of saving the world, but those are only two of his objectives. And he tells Sue and the others here, I'm trying, I swear it, I would do anything to be with you. And this is where we see after Doom's conversation with Tony, he's approached by Hank Pym. And when Doom tells Hank that he's considering leaving the Ultimates, Hank tells him like, man, I consider that about 100 times a day. And Doom tells him, I am not stable. I cannot be trusted. And Hank says here, I had pretty much the same thought back when I had my little revelation. You know what Cap told me? His failures are not your failures. His sins are not yours. Annoyingly right as always. Which right there's a callback to Hank's crazy backstory, when we found out Janet played a part in Hank losing his memories and basically taking on a whole new personality. It's crazy. But ironically, Hank says here, you decide who you're going to be, Doom, even though Hank didn't have a choice, and Doom tells him this latest revelation is only part of it. I am not well, Henry. There are times I feel figures close to me, looking over my shoulder, like ghosts. Not presences, but absences, the shape of loss. I feel them now. And this just has Hank like ghosts? I see those sometimes, only for me it's the guy I was before the accident. I don't think they ever go away. I think they just kind of follow you around, forever. It used to really bother me, this thing I couldn't shake. Then one day, I had this thought, and I felt better since. Just because you are broken doesn't mean you need to be fixed. And now after this, with the last few moments that we look at, the first one gives us a look at how the students of Project 4 see Doom. Because there's a moment here where he's at the cosmic chamber with it saying, danger, cosmic radiation levels exceeded maximum safe threshold, exposure fatal. And while he's doing this, he's approached by one of the students named Magna, who's asking if everything's okay. So he tells her, of course, like he was just testing to make sure the machine's in order. And I'll admit, this had me like, oh snap, we got Doom running benchmarks before GTA 6. And I mean, at this rate, everything's happening before GTA 6. But Doom goes on to tell her he's testing the cosmic batteries and safety systems. Everything appears to be in order, no more failures. So that's where Magna says death is creative and painful. And it catches Doom off guard for a moment, but then she's like, that's what you said. If you don't get the cosmic energy dosage exactly right, death is creative and painful, right? And though she's also calling him Dr. Doom this whole time, even still, what she's saying is exactly what Doom had said before. But then Magna goes on to invite Doom to join her and the others in celebrating the Gamma Bomb facility mission, instead of just sitting here and sulking by himself in his lab. So Doom tells Magna again just to call him Doom, not Dr. Doom, and he tells her no, that she should go and enjoy herself and that his place is here, in the lab. And she's just like, no it's not, don't make me magnetically drag you there by your mask. And she ends up getting Doom to go and celebrate with the others, as they all cheers around him to the Fantastic Force, while Doom's in the middle looking like, I'm not gonna say it, lose my aura points. But then when we go back to Doom's conversation with Hank noticing that the mice are no longer dying, he asks Doom what he's going to do with them next. And in a rundown of 4 different moments put together here, Doom says, when the mice stop dying, the Fantastic Four will return. And as he looks at the ghosts of Sue, Ben, and Johnny, he says, I will have my revenge on the Maker. And then I will come to you, my family. And as he looks into the cosmic chamber, he says, in death, we will be together again. Which explains the murder mode benchmark. And after that, Doom lets the Fantastic Four mice go free. And I gotta say, this kind of sounds like Doom is getting ready to destroy the Ultimate Universe. Or better yet, give it a hard reset. Because with him saying when the mice stop dying, the Fantastic Four will return, as well as him saying that he's going to join Sue and the others in death. This just sent me back to something I was thinking about. Because when Doom saved the Ultimates, who had already died, and he basically saved Scum to bring them all back, which he was only able to do after Tony got crushed. But for a while I was thinking, why doesn't Doom just do this for Sue and the others? But then it had me thinking of how this would undo Doom and everything he did as far as helping Howard to lock the Maker away, as well as bringing the Immortus engine to Tony and helping him to assemble the Ultimates. And it had me thinking like, man, if this is what Doom is going to do, then the Guardians were probably right about Doom and Tony. Like back when Star-Lord said to Doom, the man in the iron mask, the man in the iron lung. Now I remember, one of you will be responsible for untold suffering and the deaths of trillions, and the other could save everything. Now which was which? And man, all I'll say is after this issue, it kind of feels like we're getting closer to that answer. Because if Doom were to try and bring back Sue and the others, this reset would delete trillions of lives going forward in this universe for centuries. And the only person who could do anything about it, or as Star-Lord would say, save everything, is Tony Stark. Because also with Star-Lord mentioning that he didn't remember who was saving or who was destroying what between Tony and Doom, one of the first things he told Doom was that you are not the Doom we know, but there's something familiar about you, something dangerous. And I mean, the Doom he knows may have had a 4 on his chest. I mean, who knows? All I can say is whatever this is leading into, when the dust settles, if Doom doesn't have Tony, or the other way around, we might not have an Ultimates universe. And you know, it would be nice to see Tony step in, save Doom, and return the favor. But either way, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Is Doom becoming the Unmaker? Is he about to hit that hard reset? Or is he just gonna crank up the cosmic chamber and hop in it like an air fryer? Let me know what you guys think. And so now real quick, I wanna give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. All right, later.